All right, let's do it live on a Thursday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily. I am merely Beau. He is something far more significant. He is the great Z. And before we had started the show, you were doing fantastic dance number. And I just feel like you'd be at the life of a party at any sort of party you would be in.
Well, thank you.
And it reminded me you're welcome. It reminded me of the wedding scene in The Wolf of Wall Street. And I feel like that is like you would have thrived in that type of setting.
Boy, would I.
With the one you were doing right before the show had a little bit of the Wolf of Wall Street in it. Had a little bit of that in it. It was very, very good.
It's a tremendous cinematic experience.
Is that a movie that now has reached, like for me, it's probably reached the level of if it's on, I'll check and see where it is and then stay with it for a while.
Agreed. 100%. It's on that. It's Hangover-ish for me, although Hangover doesn't have a bad part, in my opinion. Like, I'll jump into Hangover pretty much anytime, and I might jump back out, but I'll enjoy it. Wolf of Wall Street, I only like the fun. The depressing, the downfall, not nearly as fun. I'm not interested in that. I just want all the frivolity.
That's what I'm saying. You got to get out.
Yeah, you got to get out
at a certain point. Yeah, you got to get out. I think it's probably once you get on the boat in the Mediterranean, at that point you push away.
Yeah, right, because then we're about to go downhill, which is
totally
unfortunate. Like, let's just have the whole movie just be all the fun. Like, and
all
then
the
at the end, sometimes I don't understand movies like that. They have to, they really want to drive the point home that, look, excess is not good. We all know this already. We're all aware of this.
Yes, it's just fun.
Give me 120 minutes of just pure, full throttle, pedal to the metal, excess insanity, a life that I'll never lead. Let me just vicariously, and then at the end be like, as expected, huge downfall, divorced, bankrupt, jail, all of it. Okay.
All of it, yeah.
But boy, it was fun.
Yeah. It's really the only flaw in another movie that I think is really almost perfect, Wedding Crashers, where for reasons beyond any explanation, we have to go to the beach on a bike. No, crab cakes and football. I don't need to go on a bike. I don't need the drama. We don't need that. It doesn't have to go like that.
No.
It doesn't need to get serious.
If I want to watch a serious McAdams movie, I'm going to throw on, The Notebook with Gosling.
Jeez. Yeah, that's heavy. That's got a lot going on.
It's got a lot going on.
The first time I watched that, the only time I've watched that with my wife, the end of that, she audibly gasped.
Oh, she didn't know?
No.
Oh, wow.
No.
Yeah, that one, that's a tearjerker. The first time I watched that was with Miss K. That's intense. I think movies need to just stay in their lanes. Like,
stay in your lane.
Fun. We don't need to be fun and serious. Now, there's like certain Bill Murray movies do that very, very effectively. The Life Aquatic, for example. But it's escapism. I'm fine to lock into 90 minutes of something really intense and serious and powerful if it's well done. But don't try to creep up 10 minutes of that into 80 minutes of greatness. Like, let's just stay great. Yeah.
American Pie did that well.
Oh.
Another old one that was pretty much never tried to turn into being serious.
Launched Eugene
stayed
Levy.
Frivolous. Yeah, which he's great. He continues to be great to this day.
He's great well before.
All right, let's get into the... Yes. Launched Eugene Levy. Just heard me. I just realized you said launched. Yeah, probably. He had some work before
that. The people that were launched by American Pie, by the way, their launch is a quick ascent and then a quick right back to earth.
There's nothing that's sustained with that group.
No.
Bandcamp Girl was the best. I mean, she was on that really popular CBS show. That's
How I Met Your Mother.
That's got to be the only.
And Eugene Levy.
Yeah, that's got
Stifler's mom.
Right, but he was well established at that point, and so was she because she was in all the Christopher Guest movies.
Right.
So they were all that was all fine. Yeah, gosh, that didn't go well for everybody there. All right, let's get into the OBM hot topics. Ohio Business Machine, preferred copier provider of your Cleveland Browns, of all the X's and O's for your office. Call 216-485-2000 or visit ohiobusinessmachines.com. Interesting from Coach today on Nick Chubb. Hopeful he will play Sunday. Expectations about the guys returning. Gibby.
So, what I was going to say real quick.
What I do?
What I do?
What do I do?
Gibby. Yes, what do you think, Gibby?
Wait, I have no idea. I am in the middle of editing like 3 different things for the show right now, so I got you underway.
The water's warm. Right, you sent us off, and we're good. Listen, I'll tell you this. I talked to some of the guys. Nick Chubb looked ridiculously good. That being said, they are going to be cautious with him, which is why I think there is what I would call a cautious giddiness and optimism that Nick Chubb and Wyatt Teller, who also looked awesome, will be ready. A hoop, he's going to play. He's good. Had a great day at practice as well. Was right there with Baker. They were in great form, great rhythm together. Nick Chubb looked ridiculous. Now the question is going to be, does that first big day of work, does that cause any inflammation? Does that cause anything? So I think after today's practice and how it has responded, and really probably by Friday, we'll have a very good idea of what the final deal will be with Nick Chubb. I would say right now, Magic 8-ball, arrow pointing, good. Looking good.
Feeling good. So great. There's another one. Trading. That's on. I mean,
always.
You're in on Trading Places. That got dark for the one scene, too. Really?
That was a pretty staple, though. That was a pretty 80s comedy staple that you would have.
Blow through them. And so, I mean, we really do. So, my guess is that a week from now that there will be some pretty strict things that are happening. Now, that is in regard to society at large and would affect many of our personal lives and the way we go to our business and professional lives. But how does that affect a football team? And I think that what the NFL knows, and it's probably part of why they decided to say, hey, if we have to go to 16-team playoff, we do. If we're open to bubbling all season, to this point has been relatively small. My guess is it won't continue to be there. Small. That it will get bigger and bigger as the weeks go on.
I mean, that's just the trend, right? That's kind of what we're dealing with in society. And yes, Mike DeWine, it was sounded like another one of his, come on, guys. Like, come on. Don't make me be the bad guy. Help me out.
Please, I'm warning you.
But he might end up having to, be a little bit of the bad guy. But, yes, the NFL, to Gibby's original question, win every game. Win every game.
Yeah.
And I think, for example, the Browns' next 3 are imminently winnable. If you can if you're 8-3, who knows? 8-3, you might only play another game or 2. We really don't know what's going to happen. I do believe the NFL is going to find a way. What I think could happen is teams that are in the mix, they'll keep going. But, like, let's say, for example, there's a Jets-Giants game, and that's what concerns me the most. Those are 2 that we're counting on as wins, second and third to the end of the season weeks. That's our second to last game and our third to last game. You need those. The NFL might say with teams like that, if things get haywire, because
for sure.
Look, you've got to be concerned just as humans, right? You've got to be concerned about the holidays. Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And, for example, in my family, we are all quarantining beginning today as best we can for Thanksgiving. So that's 2 weeks. Anybody who wants to be there, and then somebody who's not willing to quarantine's got to take a COVID test right before coming, or they're not, and quarantine since they take the test, or they're not coming. It's just that simple. You're going to need to have extreme measures because, it's not so much the guys necessarily themselves getting it, but it is them being found to be close contacts with people who do test positive, because that's enough to keep you out. And then anybody who's a close contact to you can be kept out. So that's where this is going to have to be. And we're in the home stretch. We're halfway there. We have rounded the turn. Now it's a matter of everybody being very, very vigilant and keeping this together.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's all on the table. I think from a sports fan perspective, and Buckeye fans had to deal with this yesterday, you just view every game as a gift. Every game you get to play is a gift, and no more are promised other than the one you're playing while you're playing it. And that's just the reality of where we are. The NFL has proven to be better at this than I think a lot of people thought. I can't believe the lack of disruption, honestly, that we've had. It's been remarkable, and it's been awesome. But I think every game is a gift. I think the other thing you say is is as the NFL, that all is on the table. For example, you could see a point. You say, look, if we could get to 12 games and this thing starts to really spread, let's shut it down. We'll see you in 3 weeks. We'll quarantine. We'll go into a bubble. We'll play a playoff.
Yep.
That's just me talking. That's no scores. That's just.
No, that's possible.
I just think it's all
on the table.
I think it's on the table.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think everything's on the table. If you get to a round number of games that everybody's played and you start to see wide outbreaks, you say, okay, let's stop. We've established that we've played a season. We've played 12, 14, 10, however many games. Let's now quarantine. Let's bubble. Let's play 4 weeks of championships. The NBA did it. The NHL did it. We can do it too. And I think everything's on the table from that standpoint, guys. So be prepared for anything. To answer Gibby's question, yeah, they all are. They all are. They're critical. And especially now when you're able to play at relatively full strength. Lots to get to. You'll hear from Baker. One other thing out of the gates, the Masters is underway. Have you been watching this morning?
Oh, have I?
Oh, have I? I love to set you up with those.
Gibbe's watching it right now. That's why he's turned his camera off, I think, because he's looking over there. He's watching the Masters.
For one of his other shows that doesn't even exist.
So I've got it. I've got the volume. Yeah, we're still playing. I don't know what happened. They sounded the horn, but they're still playing. So I don't know if they're replaying, if ESPN, since they just joined the coverage.
I believe that I'm watching live golf.
Yeah, we are watching live golf. You know what's pretty cool, though? It's ESPN's stuff on today and tomorrow, and yet on the two biggest holes, Jim Nantz is calling the action on ESPN.
Yeah.
That doesn't suck.
It's Jim Nantz.
No. And it's the Masters.
Yeah, and Van Pelt's kind of like the MC ringleader.
It's a tradition unlike any other, Gibbe.
Yeah, they do what they want. I mean, a couple of things that are just amazing of the Masters and their power. But the one that is biggest is CBS sends them a bill at the end of the year for how much it costs for CBS to put on the tournament, and then the Masters just writes them a check for that. That's how it works. There's no contract. There's nothing like that. So that's the way that the deal works. They send them a bill at the end of the year, which some country clubs do that anyway, so it's a very country club thing to do. Just say at the end of the year, here's what you owe, write the check. And then Augusta has those four members. Those four, they call them partners. It's Mercedes and IBM and Coca-Cola, and there's one more. And those four, that's the price. Here's what you pay to be a part of it.
Wow.
That's a flex.
That's pretty awesome.
That's a flex.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The idea that, and to Gibby's point, further flex that the voice of a rival network is calling it because that's what they say is going to be. So ESPN, if you want to be here, great.
Nance.
Here's what it's going to be.
Yep.
And ESPN goes, thank you. We have another.
Yeah, sure. We like that.
Do you remember you guys remember what they did with the first time Augusta was on the Tiger Woods golf game? Do you guys remember this?
Of course I do.
I do not.
Okay. It's the only course where you can't spin the ball.
Couldn't do anything.
So you couldn't amp up and hit it. You couldn't spin it or shape it. The ball just would drop where it landed. All the other courses, right, and it would roll forever. You couldn't, sure, if you got good at it, like I'm guessing you did, Z, you could probably score there. But on a normal, if on a normal course on Tiger Woods golf, you'd shoot 66. At Augusta, you'd shoot 86.
Much different, number one. Number two, Didn't they also, if I'm recalling correctly, didn't they put the Augusta was on the cover of the game?
Augusta was on the cover of the game.
Yes.
You also, if you were doing a creative character, you couldn't have any of your sponsor stuff. You had to go back to the original EA gear. You couldn't even wear your sponsor stuff on their track.
Unreal. A lot of power. A lot of power.
It is. Who's winning this thing? I haven't been watching.
So right now, the leader is Lee Westwood. Lee Westwood is currently, I want to say, 5 under, I believe.
Simpson just eagled to tie him up at 5.
All right, so Westwood and Simpson are 5. Casey's 4. John Rahm has a tap-in eagle. DeChambeau's going to birdie, so DeChambeau will be 1 under, which puts him into the top 10. Tiger is 2 under, so certainly in the mix. It's going to be it's setting up to be an awesome leaderboard because Rom will be 2 under, Tigers 1 under. Tigers 2 under. DeChambeau's going to be 1 under. I don't think DJ's teed off yet. This is going to be it's going to be fun.
It's going to be interesting because some of the bigger afternoon groups don't tee off because of the weather delay now till 3:10.
Yeah,
they're
Cantlay and DJ.
They'll be back tomorrow morning to finish.
How's this for a group? Cantlay, DJ, and Rory McIlroy 3:10.
Wow, and they'll play what 7 holes?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that
Something
stinks.
like that.
Justin
All right,
Rose
so
tees off at 3:20. So Zach Johnson's 3:20. Jose Maria Olafable. Gotta love that guy.
Love that guy.
Molinari's 3 o'clock. Bubba's 2:30. Mickelson's 2:30. Fleetwood's 2:30.
Hitting bombs, baby.
This is a sweet. I hope that this could be so great. I just wish, knowing what we know about college football, that they could somehow have just done the Masters. They should just this year have done it Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, so that it ended on Saturday instead of Sunday with the NFL.
Not to conflict with the NFL. Yeah, that would be good. We'll keep you updated on it as it goes along. You hear from your quarterback coming up next. Hear from Joe Woods in this first hour as well. Off and running here in a Thursday edition, Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. If a car, truck, or motorcycle accident causes you injury, call the injury lawyers at 1-800-ELK-OHIO for a free case review. Elk & Elk is a proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. Your quarterback, Baker Mayfield, was available. This was yesterday, right, Gibby? This was, Wednesday. Yeah, that's right. Wednesday
Correct,
was available.
So
Baker was, yeah.
With the whole advanced protocols, the players are talking after practice because they literally show up. Everything's virtual until they show up. They go through walkthrough and then literally have 15 minutes to turn around, get everything on gear-wise, and go practice. Then they talk to the media, and then they're gone.
Okay. That's the way that's going to go. So this is Baker from yesterday. Let's hear quite a little bit about what our quarterback has to say, including his thoughts on getting Nick Chubb back in the offense.
Yeah, this is nothing against our other backs because we believe in those guys as well. But having that two-headed monster of those guys, being able to sub fresh legs in as needed, that's something that we're extremely blessed to have. And so we're excited to have them both back out there, as well as the compliments of our other guys. But yeah, it's a huge part of our offense to be able to sub those guys in with fresh legs, and it wears on defenses. Later in the games when they're able to still be somewhat fresh, it's amazing what the grind and like the ground game pounds on those guys.
Well, and Nick Chubb has an ability to see almost 2 moves ahead. Like it's not just that he's so powerful and so fast, but his ability to see holes and to see openings, it's next level. It's elite. And so when I got pretty excited when I heard you say he looked great.
Let me just run this by you.
Please.
Despite missing the last 4 games, Browns running back Nick Chubb still leads the NFL with 6 rushes of 20-plus yards this season.
And he's missed 4 games.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's good.
Okay.
He's good. Case closed. Case closed. Speaking of starting the second half and doing it in style, if that's not in fact what we were speaking of, but we tried the best we can here. Here's Baker on the self-scouting he did in the bye week with his coaches.
Yeah, I think our meetings were extremely productive over the bye week. Like we said about the self-evaluation stuff, we not only looked at what we were doing well, but we actually had some time to sit down and talk about how I see things, how he sees things, and to really some of that stuff throughout the week that we're missing out on that we were able to accomplish. So I'm very excited about getting back to work, this last journey and this run that we're trying to make. And it started a long time ago, but hitting the reset button and being able to start fresh again is a blessing.
Yeah, I think there's a real opportunity for him and Coach Stefanski to have, over the course of that time, and realize Baker was away, but you could still be able to do all the Zooms and all that type of stuff, to be able to kind of have some conversations about what they both liked about what they were doing, and that those things did take place, and that what I think you'll see this second half is the best of Baker in this offense. And we talked about this. We talked about this a lot in the lead up to the season of Cousins, and early at the beginning of the seasons of Cousins at the start with this offense, and then what it became as it went along. And I think it would be fair to have a similar expectation of Baker Mayfield, Z.
Yeah, and I think it's fair for it to come in the second half of the season, whereas Cousins really started after the first quarter of the season because Cousins had a full spring and off season to get into it. They've kind of had to do a lot of learning and experimentation and labbing, as they call it, during actual NFL games. And so I think now they're incredibly well positioned to try and take advantage of all of their learnings, their experimentation, and now really just kind of get down into the things that they all do very, very well. And so this could be a big second half for Baker Mayfield. There are going to be games where he's going to need to throw the ball and throw it effectively against good defenses to win. And I think that's really the evolution. If that starts to happen, we're going to be really tough to beat. I mean, flat out, period, end of story, really tough to beat.
Yep, absolutely. We last played the Texans 2 years ago. Baker was asked if there was anything he could take away from that meeting.
Yeah, I'd say pull my head out and don't turn the ball over multiple times in the first half, and we probably would have been in a better spot. That's probably about it.
It's a good job out of him. Look, I think there is juice for Baker and for any of these guys when they play their peers. And there are a few quarterbacks who defined college football in the 2010s the way Baker Mayfield and Deshaun Watson did. Baker got the Heisman, Deshaun got the national championship. But those two guys started for a lot of years at monster schools that were on the cusp of championship. They were in the championship conversation their entire careers. They were kind of the post. They both started for 4 years. They both were around all the time. And so I think there's probably quite a bit of juice for them when they see each other.
I would absolutely agree, and I think that this is going to be one of those very, very kind of a fun meeting, and one where I think Baker wants to prove that he can go head-to-head with the Deshaun Watsons. And Watson, has been let down by the people around him. His record is no way any indication of the way that he has performed this season. And so
no.
I think, Baker wants to do that. You know, Baker and Lamar. You get Baker and Joe Burrow. You got Baker and Deshaun. Baker and Mahomes if we get to do that. That's where he's going to measure himself against the great young quarterbacks of the National Football League. And so far, against Burrow, 2-0. We like that. Against Lamar, not as good. And, of course, he's got to take down Ben Roethlisberger at some point for this team to really get where we want it to be.
Yeah, that is certainly the objective. In addition to our quarterback and the entire team coming back, a big addition is our offensive line and Wyatt Teller and the return. Here was Wyatt on what he thinks of the return of himself and Nick Chubb to this run game.
Yeah, I really hope so. I think that's a culmination, of Hoop, Nick, me. It's a whole thing. I think that I wouldn't put it on anybody. Maybe Nick. I mean, Nick's damn near superhuman. So, but no, he's a good player. I'm excited to come back with him. I'm thankful. We were joking around when we were in the rehab. He was like, "Hey, make sure you know where I always am. Okay, make sure you know where I always am." I said, "No problem. I know where you are from now on out." So, but he was. We've been getting along, and we've been enjoying a little bit of downtime, even though I know we both wish we were out there.
I love that dude, man.
So infectious, the energy. Love it.
He is. He's such a good human.
So Petrak followed up with him and said, like, do you mean like where you are, like because you kind of fell into him, whatever happened there on that play? And he said, no. He said, basically, week 1, Baltimore, it was my guy that came up and like knocked the ball out and made him fumble. And then like last year in New England, he said, I trucked a guy. I thought he was down, and then he got up and ran down and chased Chubb down the field and popped the ball out. So he was busting my chops. Make sure you know where I am.
He's just got a good spirit about him. He feels like one of those guys that was always the life of the party. The little Frank the Tank vibe with Wyatt Teller.
There's certainly a little bit of that vibe, no doubt. No doubt.
Yeah.
I'm sure he was a hoot at Virginia Tech.
Yes. I'm guessing that he has. All right, lots more to get to. You'll hear from your defensive coordinator, Joe Woods, coming up. Are you a sports fan looking for a part-time weekend job? Get into the action at First Energy Stadium, home of the Cleveland Browns. Wes is now hiring for part-time event staff. You can apply online at weshiring.com. Joe Woods up next. You'll listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Beau Bishop here for my friends at Weather Seal Home Services. Look, they're your go-to for literally any home improvement need. It's November. You know that the weather is going to get bad. Snow, ice, rain, wind, it's all moving in. Don't get stuck in the cold with that leaky roof that you know you have. Let the team at Weather Seal help you. The great roof offer, it's a buck down, 7 years, 0% financing, and you get that new roof your home needs and have a peace of mind this winter that you know that you want. Don't delay, guys. Call Weather Seal today, 877-351-SEAL, or visit WeatherSealHomeservices.com. That sale ends at the end of this month, November 30th. It's with approved credit. Prior sales are excluded. 877-351-SEAL, or visit WeatherSealHomeservices.com. We heard from Baker Mayfield. A little bit of self-scouting done on the defensive side of the ball as well, certainly on the back end. Here's your defensive coordinator, Joe Woods, on that.
Hey, Coach, when you both on Houston's offense, they're top 5 in passing, explosive plays, yards per catch, et cetera. Could you just touch on the challenge that presents your secondary?
Yeah, it's really like the same thing every week. You know, it's just the nature of playing in the NFL is week to week, it's always about matchups. And when you look at them from the quarterback position to the wide receiver position, they really have some matchups that create some problems. They're able to stretch the field vertically. They're good underneath. Coach Cobb, run after the catch. So we're going to do a good job, in coverage, really triggering on the ball and doing a good job when we're matched up, staying on top.
Hey, Coach, I want to ask you about the D-line. Specifically, what do you need to see better from them over the second half of the year? And do you think fresher legs this week will help?
Yeah, I definitely, think that, the bye week was good. It seems like it's been a long time. But just for the guys to be able to take a breath, look at everything, get rested up. I feel the guys, they came out so far in practice really well. The energy's been good. But as far as the D-line in particular, I think it's a group effort. It's really not a one position group. In the back end, you have to do a good job in covering the time for the D-line. And then if we're running pressures, things of that nature, it's about execution. So I just think collectively as a defense, that'll help us be able to pressure, the quarterback a little bit more.
Hey, Coach, a little bit more on Deshaun Watson. What specifically have you seen from him this season? Statistically, it looks like he's been playing well, and the record isn't great, but how dangerous is he?
He is very dangerous. Very dangerous. So I haven't slept very much this week. But when you look at them, they're doing a nice job in their scheme. You can just tell just in terms of their offense, how they put it together with the run and pass game. I think they're really putting him in a position to take advantage of his talents. And I was answering the question earlier, is when you do everything right, then you gotta chase him down, which creates another problem. So he's playing at a high level this year, and he's really doing a good job running their offense.
Specifically about Deshaun, if you look over his last, I think it's 5 or 6 games, he's just absolutely lights out. So it seems like he's kind of getting hotter as the season goes along, and hasn't thrown very many interceptions. So what are the talking points? What are you telling your guys about how you can kind of get a handle on Deshaun?
Yeah, there's some things we want to do defensively to try to put ourselves in better positions, but you can see how they spread the field to give them opportunities. You can see how, when they're throwing the ball deep, this how they're doing a good job of protection, with their offensive line. So it's going to be us mixing our coverage, trying to get him to move a little bit out of the pocket, trying to get some pressure in his face. But we just can't let him sit back there and really just get comfortable and try to pick us apart, based on how they play us.
Hey, Coach, I know you evaluate the film after every game, but when you guys did the self-scout during the bye, did anything really stand out to you as far as, hey, this is killing us, or hey, these are some issues we're able to fix?
No, I mean, there's always things that stick out, but I think the first thing for us defensively, we always look at ourselves as coaches. Like for me, looking at the calls, how can I call it better? What areas do I need to be more aggressive? What areas do I need to, play more coverage? And so I think defensively, the first thing we did as a staff said, how can we get better? So we'll be able to tweak the menu, change things, make it simpler, be more aggressive at times. Those are things we saw. And then from a player standpoint, it's always week to week. It comes down to execution. And I think sometimes trying to make a play puts you in a position where you can't make a play. So we always talk about those guys that just doing your job is all that's required. And we saw a little bit of stuff there, but overall, I don't think it's anything, like, oh my God. It's just really just tightening up the details of our coverage package and what we're doing, and me just, calling it a little bit better.
Will you tweak the lineup at all?
That's something. It's like we're tweaking it every week, just based on what's going on. But we feel real comfortable. We're playing multiple people at multiple positions. So we'll continue to evaluate that each week.
And when you look at those receivers, Will Fuller particularly, what do you do to slow him down? He has 6 touchdown catches already.
We're still working on it. No, it's really just a combination of coverage. It's sometimes pressure, getting the ball to quarterback's hands faster. Sometimes it's rolling coverage his way. But it's like what I always tell the guys: when you do something to try to take somebody away, you weaken yourself somewhere else. So it's like pick your poison. But we have to be able to do multiple things from a coverage package standpoint, the looks we give them, and from a pressure standpoint.
Joe, I think you touched on this earlier, but I wanted to get more into it. It appeared in the Cincinnati game, you really tried to manufacture pressure more than other games for whatever reason. And I'm wondering, are you is that a weekly challenge for you? You look at your stat numbers, and other than Miles, nobody has been consistent up front creating pressure. So are you balancing when to bring pressure, or is it the opponent that determines that more than anything?
No, it's a little bit of both, because we're evaluating them based on what we see on tape, and they're evaluating us, as well. So I got to look back and say, man, what am I calling as well? But I think when you look at it overall, like you mentioned Miles and, the pressures that he's been able to create, I think it's a whole defensive. It's how the whole defense functions. There's things that we do in terms of moving Miles around to create one-on-ones. There's times we try to bring pressure away from them. So we're trying to do things to create opportunities for other guys to get pressure. But it's just not all on the D-line. It's just not all on the coverage. It's me changing the play calls as well. So I know I probably lost your question a little bit.
No, that's what I was looking at. And the follow-up I wanted to know is, Kevin has talked about how it's taken him a while to learn his players and what they're good at, what they're not good at. You feel you have a good grasp on your defensive players, or there's still some guys you're waiting to find out? I don't know if I can trust them in that role or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a weekly thing. And, you ask, like, what are we doing? Is it week-to-week game plan, how much pressure, things of that nature? So always you look at the matchups. You always look at the matchups. Okay, who are guys we have to take care of? Who are the guys going to be isolated one-on-one? What type of coverage packages can we run? What type of pressures can we run? So it's evaluation of, yes, our players, what they're capable of doing, but also what are the opponents doing to try to attack us.
Hey, Coach, so many guys are coming back for the offense from injury, but you're getting Jacob Phillips, working him back in. How's he doing? And I know he hasn't played a ton this season, but from the few games that you got with him, what did he show you?
Yeah, we're evaluating him, daily. Just giving him reps, how much he can take. But so far this week, he's looked good. You haven't seen anything physically that's bothered him. I think the big thing Jacob brings to the table is he's very competitive. So it's like when the lights come on, man, his hair is on fire. He's running to the ball. Now, he may not execute everything properly all the time, but the thing you're going to get is you're going to get a guy that plays hard. So I think he'll get better with the more reps.
Yeah, Coach, did you find out, not that you didn't already know, but, when Miles was lost for much of that past game, with the knee injury, did you kind of get a sense of, obviously, just how vitally important he is to your defense? And then I have a quick follow-up after that.
Yeah, he's definitely important because people have to account for him. So it changes protections, it changes formations, it changes routes when he's in there. So you definitely feel it when he's out of the game. You don't have time to think about it, but things change slightly.
And in talking to Romeo the other day, he was talking about how he believes that, JJ being on one side and Miles being on the other will kind of bring out the juice in both of them a little bit. Just wondering, what you think of that notion, and also what do you think of JJ? And is he somebody that you have used over the years in showing younger guys how to get this job done?
Yeah, I'm sure along the way that's something, the most D-line coaches I've been around, Coach Kiffin, Bill Kolar, they always make tape of who they feel are the best pass.
1 minute.
And I know Kolar was down there in Houston when I was in Denver, but he's a guy that a lot of people show just because of his versatility inside, his power, his quickness. He's been able to dominate. That's why he's been Defensive Player of the Year, in this league. But in terms of Miles, is he going to get juiced up? I don't know. It just depends on how players look at it. But I'm sure he wants to play well in this game.
Hey, Coach. I know we've asked you about this guy a lot, but with Ronnie Harrison, is there something you've learned about
30
in the first half of the season that maybe you didn't expect?
He's a baller. He's another guy. He's going to show up. He's going to play with his hair on fire. And it's just getting Ronnie comfortable with our system. And he's still getting comfortable with some aspects of the system. But you just really see he has a natural feel. I think the last game you guys saw.
Stand by.
With all the different movements and misdirections just to fit his gap. But when he shows up on game day, he's 100 miles an hour, and he's a total gamer.
You're up.
Boy, you love that from Coach Woods. He's a baller, describing Ronnie Harrison. Yes, sir. Yes, he is.
He is a baller, and he's a guy we want to see more of. Yeah. As we said, he shouldn't come off the field anymore.
I don't think he will. Do you? Now that you have the bye week in? I don't think so. I think that's a done deal. You roll with Ronnie, and he's just around the ball all the time. He just wrecks games. So
right. If there are snap allocation adjustments on the back end of this defense, I believe he would be above the fray.
I would agree with that, certainly. All right, coming up next, our defense versus the challenge of that Texans offense. It is a formidable one. We will get that preview for you coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Snapple on 850 ESPN Cleveland. At Union Home Mortgage, their loan officers going to overtime to deliver you a world-class mortgage experience. It's going to make you a raving fan. Find home financing options you need with the customer service you want. Visit UnionHomeMortgage.com to get a mortgage you'll rave about. Union Home Mortgage, promises kept. Union Home Mortgage Corp. NMLS is an equal housing lender. Time for the matchup. Our defense, their offense. We've seen their offense. It is elite in one specific aspect. It's as good as anybody in the league. It just so happens to be one of the things we struggled with, Z, in the first half of this season.
Yeah, this is a Houston Texans team that can flat out throw the football. Deshaun Watson, 2,376 yards, 17 touchdowns, 5 picks. He's run for another 200 yards and a touchdown. He's averaging 8.8 yards per attempt, which is second most in the NFL. He's got 2 receivers on track for 1,000-yard seasons. Will Fuller, 36 catches, 590 yards, 6 touchdowns. That's 16.4 a catch. The 6 touchdowns, well, he's caught 1 in each of the last 6 games, the longest streak in the NFL in years since Antonio Brown went for 8 straight a couple of years ago. Brandon Cooks, 37 catches, 510 yards, 3 touchdowns. He scored in 3 of the last 4 games. Watson over the last 3, 8 touchdowns, no interceptions. Watson, multiple touchdown passes in 6 straight games. Randall Cobb, 33 catches on 41 targets, 393 yards, and 2 touchdowns. They can absolutely throw it. Their tight ends, familiar names. Darren Fells, 16 for 231 and 3 scores. Pharaoh Brown on the team as well, 3 for 32 on the season. They got a guy, if he's healthy, to watch, Jordan Akins, young rookie, who was productive early in the season. So they can throw it. They can throw it as well as anybody in the league. They cannot run it. David Johnson on the season, averaging 50 yards a game. Duke Johnson, career low, 2.8 yards per carry. He's likely to be the main guy with David Johnson out. But that's their offense. You've got to get after him. You've got to disrupt Deshaun. You've got to get after him blitzing, and you've got to take advantage of the right side of the line. Their right tackle, right guard have allowed 50 pressures this season. Laramie Tunsil on the left is playing as well as any left tackle in the NFL. So you've got to get after him on the right side. You should be able to absolutely eliminate their run, but you've got to be prepared for Watson to scramble. He scrambles on about 7% of his dropbacks, which is the highest rate in the NFL, and you're going to have to cover for a long time. He likes to hold the football and make plays happen. So the guys up front need to get to him, get him on the ground, or at the very least contain him. The guys on the back end, you need to cover, and you need to respect the speed of Fuller and Cooks.
Do you sense any... Do you think you'll see a little bit of shift in personnel on the back end of our defense?
I do not. I think you're going to see Sendejo and Harrison. I think you're going to see at the corners Denzel Ward, Money Mitch, and Kevin Johnson. I still think you will start to see more of that 3-safety look that incorporates Carl Joseph into the mix as well. But honestly, it's not going to be, in a sense, kind of what, I know a lot of people were hoping that there would be changes on the back end of this defense. I've seen nothing thus far this week that would give me any indication that that is coming to fruition, that you're going to see anything other than Sendejo and Harrison there. I just don't see it. Now, your linebackers, B.J. Goodson, Malcolm Smith have been the guys that have played in most of your nickel situations. I expect that to continue as well. I think that the tough part here is, what are we doing as it relates to, where do we get Phillips involved? How do we get, Joseph involved more? And I think that could come in certain sub-packages. But I think your base nickel, as you would call it, it's going to be the same. And so does that mean there are schematic changes? Because there are only two variables: play calls and scheme, or players.
Yeah, pretty straightforward in terms of what it can be. One of the other things, and just coming to mind as you're going through the secondary and the depth chart there and everything, and obviously Grant Delpit's been out a long time, but we knew he was out for the season when that injury happened. When it occurred, you knew what it was. You never would have thought that on that same day you would also have been without Greedy Williams for this entire season. And there's really, it's interesting, like, it's just one of those things that he'll be healthy when he's healthy, but who would have ever thunk that you would be now heading into week 10 of the NFL season, week 9 for you, and it's to the point where coach is asked about it every week, but there's not even and the way that I understand the injury, it's one of those things where when it's right, it's all the way right. Like there's nothing else that can be done. Is that the correct interpretation that you have?
It's what it seems like, and we've kind of heard in vague terms it being discussed as, some type of a nerve-related issue, and that's not something, he's rehabbing hard. He wants to be out there. But remember, we were touting this was supposed to be a defense that was going to feature, a first-round pick at one corner, a second-round pick at the other, a first-round pick at nickel, a first-round pick at one safety, and a second-round pick at the other. Now, Ronnie Harrison's in the mix, and he's a third-round pick, but you're talking about high draft picks and guys that were going to be in the mix for you at those spots, and you immediately lost Delpit and Greedy on the same day when at a time when you never thought it would be the same day. Remember, Greedy came back to practice for a little while.
Yeah.
And it's just not in the cards. And so for us, the matchup, look, this matchup, we've got to contain these guys. You got to play defense top down. We've still only allowed 2 pass plays of more than 40 yards this year. Heck, Cooks and Fuller both scored for more than that last week alone. So you've got to keep these guys in front of you. You have got to do a good job, but it's going to come down to, on the chain moving downs, your slot corner, your safeties against Cobb, Fells, Duke Johnson out of the backfield. And that's where we've got to win. On the outside, they're going to win some. I don't care how well Denzel and Money Mitch play. They're going to have some wins with Cooks and Fuller. They're good players.
Yes.
Both former first-round picks, both very talented guys. But we have got to manipulate the defense to eliminate their average guys from hurting us.
Yeah, that's it. And it's an offense that is, and we'll get to the matchup, our offense versus their defense here in a second, but even if you say we're going to run the ball and batter you, this is an offense that will relentlessly pursue the game. They will throw it and throw it and throw it and try to get back into it. Like this defense will be tested in a way in the pass game. Well, we haven't seen anything like this in the pass game, have we?
It could have been very similar, honestly, to the Raiders in the sense, not so much in that Derek Carr and Watson are the same, but that Raiders team did a lot of the same things in the pass game, but we didn't see it because of the weather. And you go back to Dallas.
That Raiders team had an ability to run. Dallas with Dak, that would be the one. We forget about Dallas just because of what they are now, but Dallas with Dak is a very apples-to-apples comparison to this, and obviously they would have had Ezekiel Elliott too, so that would have been even more difficult. They do one thing. Spin it. That's it. They can't do anything else.
One thing when you said if there are any adjustments that you could see on the back end of the defense, I do think that there will be certain circumstances where in some of our single high looks where you see Harrison playing that single high and Sendejo in the box, I think you will see that with more frequency than we did early in the season. It will not exclusively be that. Sendejo still is going to play some of the single high stuff for you, but I think you're going to see more variation in those alignments to give Harrison some of the time there and to get Sendejo closer to the line of scrimmage at times.
Yeah. All right, good stuff.
By the way, here's a fun Dak stat for you. He still, and he's been out for, forever? He got hurt the game after us?
Yeah.
He's got more passing yards than Kirk Cousins, Baker, Lamar Jackson, and Cam Newton.
Well,
he's throwing 500 yards a game.
6,000 yards.
Yeah.
He's going to throw for 6,000
He's going to set every
yards,
record.
So. Yeah. Tell me about it. He was my fantasy quarterback and the only one I drafted, so that was pure joy. Really enjoyed that. All right, coming up next, we hit to the podium. Your offensive coordinator, Alex Van Pelt. We hit the other side of the matchup as well, our offense versus their defense. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Snap-on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily on a Thursday matchup edition of the program. Beau Bishop here for my great friends at Raising Cane's, bringing more delicious hand-battered cook-to-order chicken fingers, cane sauce, crispy crinkle-cut fries, coleslaw, buttery Texas toast, sweet tea, lemonade to you. The newest location, Middleburg Heights. It's opening soon. Raising Cane's, your home for game day goods, of course. Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers, proud sponsor of the Ohio High School Association and also Ohio State Athletics. Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers, one love. Time to give a little love to our offensive coordinator. Here's Alex Van Pelt.
Hey, Coach, can you see Jarvis looking?
Guys are both down.
There's been a couple of practices, but with the rib he was dealing with, do you see him looking better this week?
Yeah, definitely. I think he is feeling better. Probably his best day of practice, as far as just the speed, the ability to catch and pluck above his head. Hopefully that rib issue is getting better each day. But he looked really good in practice yesterday.
How much do you think about him? We're not used to seeing him drop balls, but he's dropped a couple. And then how does he handle that? I mean, a guy that's so prideful and usually catches everything. How do you kind of deal with a few drops?
Yeah, I mean, he's just got to work through it. That's part of the game. Ultimately, he's going to catch more than he drops. We have great confidence in his hands. He's made some really tough catches. It's unfortunate this last game he had a couple that I'm sure he'd like to have back. But not an issue, not worried about it.
Hey, Coach, just wondering, we've talked to both Baker and Kevin a little bit about how you guys kind of, you're hitting the reset button with him a little bit, and you've kind of refined what he is going to be doing in the second half. So my question is, did you kind of head into this season having a certain set of expectations about what he could and couldn't do, and then when you got to the bye week, you were able to really kind of rewrite the plan for him? I mean, is it a major overhaul of things, or is it a tweak, or can you take us through that a little bit?
Yeah, I don't think there's any major overhaul. We knew going in that there was going to be some growth through the first part of the season. We all acknowledged the fact that we would get better each week. I think he's gotten better each week. When it comes to things like footwork, I think he's feeling much more comfortable now. So the second half of the season, like you said, we're resetting and recommitting to the second half to make that the push, the run there in the second half of the season, but not a huge overhaul. I think throughout the course of the 8 games, you kind of find out what everybody does well, what we do well schematically, what we do well individually, and then obviously we're going to try to play to those strengths of our players.
So we'll see perhaps maybe, subtle changes, like maybe more shotgun in certain situations, or maybe a little bit more rollouts here and there, or,
Yeah, there's definitely areas during the bye week that you highlight and that you go through and do your scheme evaluation and determine that, hey, these are some things we need to do more, or these are some things we need to do less. So from an individual standpoint from him, no overhaul really, just continue to grow, in the system and with the footwork that he's doing a great job with. But without giving anything away, you'll see different things schematically that we've decided during the bye week that'll be beneficial for us as an offense.
Hey, Coach, how's Nick Chubb look to you, and do you think it's reasonable to expect the Nick Chubb we're used to seeing here in the second half of the season?
I hope so. I hope he looked good yesterday in practice. He got some touches, which was great to see him back out there. The key is to get him as healthy as possible for that second half of the season for the push. It's winter football is coming. We're going to have to rely on the run game, a fair amount, and to have him healthy and full of energy there for the second half is important. But he did look good yesterday, and excited to get him back in the mix hopefully this week.
Looks like you're getting Austin Hooper back too. So what does he do for you that doesn't always show up on the stat sheet?
Hoop's a very headsy player. A lot of the things that he does a lot of the dirty work that goes unseen. Obviously he's good in the run game, blocking at the point of attack, but also he has a great understanding of coverage and route concepts and how to help guys get open if he's not the primary target. And those are some of the things that you don't see, but very smart football player. Glad to have him back.
Hey, Coach, with Nick and then Wyatt Teller both coming back, do you feel like the run game can return to where it was at the beginning of the year when it was the best in the league?
Yeah, that's our thoughts. We want to get that reestablished. We started strong and we kind of didn't hit our marks in the last few games, but getting everybody back and healthy here, hopefully in the second half, we get back on track to where we started the season.
And what do you think you missed most when Nick wasn't in the lineup?
That's probably just the combination of that 1-2 punch, having two guys that can really break tackles and do a great job in the wide zone schemes as well as the gap schemes. Just having that great 1-2 punch.
Yeah, Coach, do you
it's kind of along the lines of what Scott said, but I was in terms of Teller. Do you think you missed his kind of nasty, physical nature in there?
He definitely brings that edge, and I think the guys feed off of that. When he plays, he's very aggressive, very physical. So, hopefully getting him back here soon will bring that nasty spot back. Hub did a great job, in his place. But, Wyatt definitely does play with an edge, and he does have the strength of the nasty.
When you talk about winter football, do you think that means more tight ends too?
Yeah, it's as you all know, the weather here can change in a drop of a hat. So we have to be ready to hand the ball off if we need to on these windy days, snowy days, whatever's coming here in the future. Tight ends could be involved. We can run the ball well with one tight end or three tight ends. So just basically, however the defense dictates to us the best groupings to put on the field, that's what we'll go with.
I guess I was thinking more in terms of tight ends catching the ball. Yeah,
no, definitely in the pass game too. Quarterbacks always will tell you the tight ends are their best friends. They're usually closest to the quarterback in the progressions and usually available for them. So yes.
When you're going against a team that only has 2 interceptions all season, do you kind of approach it with a even more aggressive mindset than maybe normally?
No, I don't think that changes the decision making of the quarterback at all. We'll still go through our reads and make smart, good decisions. The fact that they only have 2. That can be caused by many things. We won't go in saying, hey, we're going to force the ball into spots because they have 2 interceptions. We'll still continue to make good decisions from the quarterback position.
Hey, Coach, and another question about Wyatt Teller. When you go back to the way he started the season, what do you think it is that just added up for him that allowed him to play at such a high level? Is it just scheme fit, or is it more than that?
I think there's a little bit of scheme fit involved. I also think, Coach Callahan and Coach Peters do an excellent job in drill work and their technique and fundamentals. And I think that, he's playing under those parameters of their technique and fundamentals, and I think it's making him a better player.
You mentioned the weather a couple of times. How disappointing was that Raiders game that you weren't able to kind of dominate on the ground?
1 minute.
You would hope. And is that something you're looking forward to getting another chance to do that?
Yes, absolutely. We'll be in those games again. We got to handle the football better in the pass game too. That was the thing. We had a few drops. We had some errant throws, and that's going to be part of the deal. But we expect to handle the ball better through the pass game. But yeah, we got to get that run game cranking when we get those days where it's blowing 40 miles per hour.
In
30,
a guy like J.J. Watt, is he still the player that everybody has to pay attention to? And then what do you tell Jack and Jedrick to prepare them for him?
He definitely is that same player. You see the burst, the strength, the length, the size, his ability of all his pass rush moves. Those guys have been watching tape. Obviously, Coach Peters does a great job of putting a plan together for those guys and kind of giving the different styles of rush that they have. But physically, yes, he's still at the top of the game.
You're up.
All right, good stuff from Coach there. Coming up on the other side of this quick timeout, we will unleash the Z and take a look at what this Browns offense will attempt to do against the Texans defense that frankly has trouble stopping the run. There's a little hint for you. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Snapple on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Rumpke Waste and Recycling, family owned and operated since 1932. They've been in business for 87 years, keeping neighborhoods clean and green. The customers, employees, and communities, they're all part of the family. Visit rumpke.com to learn more. All right, matchup day it is, and now we take a look at our offense versus their defense. And our offense, as healthy as it's been, with the obvious acknowledgement that Odell Beckham Jr. is not going to play for the rest of the season, but as healthy as it's been all season, fingers crossed that's the way it continues to go. And I would imagine with a pretty clear determination to run the ball a lot against this Texans defense.
Yeah, and that's what you're going to want to do. Why? They are the worst run defense in the National Football League. On the season, they're giving up 5.1 yards per carry, 159.5 yards per game on the ground. You can throw it on them, too. They're giving up 69% completions on the season, 260 yards per game. They've only sacked the opposing quarterback 18 times. They have but 2 interceptions on the year. And when we talked with John McClain, he told you, look, J.J. Watt's been pretty good. And J.J. Watt's been pretty good. Bradley Roby's played pretty well for them at corner. But the linebackers, and there's an investment in these linebackers, but they've been terrible. Zach Cunningham having a horrendous season. You talk about the corners. They bring in Vernon Hargraves III, the former Buck first-rounder. He has been dreadful. I mean, some of the numbers in terms of what these guys are giving up to opponents in terms of pass catching is stunning. Tyrell Adams, a safety, 20 catches on 25 targets, 228 yards, 3 touchdowns, quarterback rating 144.3 when targeted. Phillip Gaines is giving up a quarterback rating of 134.6, 3 touchdowns when he's targeted, former Brown. Eric Murray, former Brown, 24 catches on 31 targets, 288 yards, 2 touchdowns, 126.8 quarterback rating when targeted. Zach Cunningham, I told you about the linebacker. This is a linebacker, these numbers. 28 catches on 30 targets, 334 yards, 1 touchdown. And then you go back to Vernon Hargraves. Remember I mentioned him? 31 receptions, 456 yards, 2 touchdowns already this year. They're not stopping anybody. You want to get a linebacker, you want to get a safety in coverage, and you want to attack. They have been dreadful. They miss tackles. Zach Cunningham already has 14 missed tackles on the season. They have been a bad tackling team. They do not get to the quarterback. You look at their pressure generation this year. J.J. Watt's got 26, I'm sorry. Whitney Merciless has 16. Oheminu has 16, and that's it. Nobody else in double digits. They don't generate pressure. They don't tackle. They don't stop the run. They don't cover. This is a bad defense. No. I mean, it's a bad defense, and this is one where we should be able to do whatever it is that we want as an offense against this defense. And so you mentioned it right at the top. Let's go ahead and let's give the ball to Nick Chubb and to Kareem Hunt and get physical and establish the tone, because in this game, I really think our best defense could be a ball control offense.
To that end, we had the conversation of what is this offense best compared to who we've played, and we said Dallas. The same would probably be true defensively, that Dallas defense that we played back early in the season down in Dallas. And you ask yourself, well, what do we do against that Dallas defense? How about 40 carries for 307 yards and 7.7 yards a clip? And that's with Nick Chubb getting only 6 carries in that game. You threw for 200, you ran for 300 against Dallas. That's the type of defense you're dealing with here. That's what this Houston team is defensively, one of the worst in the league.
Absolute worst. And I told you 5.1 yards a carry overall. To running backs, 5.44 yards per carry. That's highest in the NFL. They give up 1.25 touchdowns per game to running backs. Second highest in the NFL. 145 yards rushing per game to running backs. That is the highest in the NFL. And you think about teams who can really run it. Who runs a similar offense to us that can run the ball that was on their schedule this year? How about the Minnesota Vikings? Dalvin Cook, 27 carries, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. They finished that day, their running backs combined for 149 yards and 3 touchdowns. How about the Tennessee Titans? That's a similar rushing attack to ours, is it not?
Yep.
Derrick Henry, 22 carries, 212 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jerry McNichols, 5 for 51. They averaged 9.7 yards per carry in that game. They also give up about 40 yards a game receiving to running back. So you think about those matchups. You think about the Vikings, similar style offense to us. You think about the Titans, similar style offense to us. Those teams rushed for, in 2 games, 412 yards at 5 touchdowns at 7 yards a carry. Those are the closest comps from style, scheme, everything to what we do. Just last week, James Robinson for the Jags, 25, 99 and a touch. But the teams that run an offense similar to what we do, 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, and about 7 yards a carry. That's what we need to do. Pound them into oblivion.
I think you mentioned this one of the days earlier in the week. You do wonder if you think about if you win the toss, taking the ball and just running right at them, and just don't. I mean, as you mentioned earlier in the week, like the more I've thought about that, like take the chance of having to chase them, because on the off chance they get it first. I know the weather. Who knows what it's going to be by the time we get there? But if they were to score quickly, then would you feel like you had to chase the game? Would you be chasing it for a whole half versus you saying, no, you're going to chase us, and there's going to be a steady diet of these 2 backs coming right at you. You're going to get a steady diet at 24 and 27.
Deal with it.
Best of luck.
Yeah, I if only we had the opportunity to interview Kevin Stefanski, which I think we'll have twice this week. Unfortunately, I believe that both times I failed to ask that question. But I don't want him to give away any strategy. But I think,
he wouldn't give you an answer on something like that anyway.
Of course he wouldn't. But this is a game where I do think if you win the toss, and it's a gut feeling. That's all it is. It's not based in anything.
No scores.
It's a gut feeling. And in this one, I would just love to take the ball, run it 15 times straight for 75 yards, and pound it in, because at that point, I think you can break their will.
Yeah.
In one drive.
Yeah, I think so too. I think just our sheer physicality up front and those 2 backs. I mean, Kareem, as great as Kareem was filling in for Chubb, Kareem was not healthy. I mean, he was dealing with groin the whole time. So you're going to get a little different diet of that. And the weather is going to play such an enormous part of this. In all your guys' years, this is for you too, Gibby, how far out do you feel confident in what the forecast says at the stadium?
I mean, it's Thursday, so today is the first day that I start paying attention.
Okay,
like,
so that's what I was curious. Like 3 days.
Yeah, I mean, if it were like 40%, I would be like, well, I think a lot can change, a lot can happen. When you're at like 80 or 90% chance of rain, I don't know how much is really going to change by Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, it could. God knows in this town, anything can happen with the weather. But I start watching on Thursday. By Friday, I'm like, all right, do we have everything we need to keep all of Zegura's gear dry? Like, Zegura, don't forget that it's going to rain, and you got to wear the appropriate stuff. That's when you start reminding everybody, okay, this is what we're looking like we're going to have to deal with.
I don't like this forecast. I pay serious attention to it.
Yeah.
Because I stand out in it. And I'm not a fan of what I'm seeing right now. This is not what I was looking for from a weather standpoint. And so I'm hoping that we can just get to the point where, maybe we've got a little sun. I'm seeing on my Dark Sky app, which I like a lot, I'm seeing 90% chance of rain.
Yeah.
And it's going to rain all morning, and it looks like into the middle of the game, second half of the game won't have rain. Am I interested in that? No, I'm not.
Not. How did it hold up in the Raiders game from a turf standpoint and all of that? Everything hold up very well?
Yeah, they do a great job. I don't think they uncovered. You probably would know better than I did when they actually uncovered the field, but I think they had it covered up until it was time to go. And don't forget though, that's a day 2 where the wind is a tremendous drying agent. Wind whipping through there can help keep that grass dry, and I don't know that we're going to have those kind of winds. I just think we're going to have an annoying rain.
Well, and let's not forget, too, we hadn't played a home game in a few weeks.
Well, same will be true this time.
And you got 2 weeks again to recover from whatever slop you might have to clean up from 2 weeks ago.
One thing we talked about possible changes defensively when we did that matchup, Z. Offensively, now that you've had the bye week to adjust with the fact that there's no Odell Beckham Jr. on this roster, no moves were made at the deadline, no one has been added to this roster, it is what it is. How do you see that rotation looking on Sunday?
I think obviously Jarvis and Hollywood are going to get the most opportunities, and then you're going to see Kaderil and Taywan Taylor and Donovan Peoples-Jones filling in that Odell role to the best of their abilities, depending on the plays. I think you will get some shot plays to Taywan Taylor. You may even get some to Kaderil Hodge as well.
Okay,
but we're going to have to stretch them. We got to. You can take shots on this team. There isn't much that is an offense that you have to cross off your list in this game, because they allow it all. And so,
yeah, what do you want to do?
What do you want to do? Continue to do what you do well, but this is the game to go for it, I'd say. I mean, this is the game where they have really, really struggled. And, you look at this team in terms of what they've done this year, they're 1-6 when they allow 20 or more points. 1-6. I realize, Nathan, they're 2-6 on the season. I know that. But when you look at certain factors that lend themselves to success, for example, turnovers. They're 0-5 when they lose the turnover battle. They're 2-1 when it's tied or they win the turnover battle. That seems to be a pretty important factor. They are, as I said, they are 0-5 when they trail at halftime. They are 1-5 or 1-6 when they allow more than 20 points. So just go ahead and get the lead, take advantage of it. When you know this team, as I said, 0-5 when you trail at half, that psychologically starts to do something to a team. We're down, we don't come back, we're toast. That's why maybe another reason to take a look at taking the football early. They're 0-4 when they trail after the first quarter. They've had double-digit deficits in all 6 of their losses this year. So just go ahead, get the lead, and make it feel like deja vu all over again. I think that was, and to be fair, an approach that was taken against the Browns for many years. Let's just put them behind, and they'll say, here we go again. And I think that's what you need to do with this Texans team. Jump out, get the lead, and make them say, oh, no, here we go again.
Yep, that is the recipe. For a look back at the first half of the season, we're going to be joined by one of our good friends, the great Nick Shook. He's now with NFL.com, and he joins us coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. If you like to play the lottery or gamble in other ways, don't take unnecessary chances. Be sure you know the odds and what you're getting into before you bet. If you want to learn more, go to keepitfunohio.com for helpful tips, interesting quizzes, great games to help you keep gambling fun. And with that, we head out on the Fifth Third money line. NFL.com writer and our great personal friend, Nick Shook.
You know, guys.
Yes.
I gotta tell you something. So on the Around the NFL podcast, everybody has nicknames except for me. So Dan Hansis has put it out to the listeners to find a nickname for me. And, you know, there's been a lot of quality candidates. The Reddit people have really produced some good options. But I will say there's a little bit of crossover between Cleveland Browns Daily listeners and Around the NFL podcast listeners. And they've made the case for your trademark introduction of me as being my nickname. I don't know if it's going to stick, but I will say that those who listen to your show are showing out in trying to get it to spread nationally.
Of course they are, and it's just
we're the world's team.
Yes, world's team. Ben Roethlisberger is trying to take that. You got to make sure you keep a strong hold on Nick Shook. It's yours. Look at where it's taking you. Look at what's next for you. We don't know. Who
knows?
Maybe we have an idea of what's next.
Jim Nantz at Augusta. Who knows?
Who knows? When it comes to Nick Shook, maybe we do know what's next. But when it comes to Nick Shook, the possibilities are endless.
Great talking to you, buddy. Hey, before we get into our first half and looking ahead at the second half, just big picture NFL. Now that we're through the halfway point, what are some themes that jump out at you? Maybe some things you didn't see coming, some things that have surprised in terms of the league. Could be a player, could be some teams, could be a trend. What are some things that jump out?
Well, if we go with player, I think the guy that has probably surprised me and many people most, if you're paying attention to the Jacksonville Jaguars, is the play of James Robinson. I'm working on a piece right now for who might be the best candidates for their first Pro Bowl appearance this year, and James Robinson is on my list because of what he's done both in the running and passing game for a team that's obviously not in contention, is in the middle of a rebuild, might have a change at head coach at the end of the year. But he's a guy, this is an undrafted free agent. The Jags cut Leonard Fournette right before the start of the season, and everybody wonders who's going to be their running back. James Robinson has definitely filled that role very well. But I think on a league perspective, when it comes to themes and surprises, I'm a little surprised that we don't have a clear-cut leader in the NFC. Now, some people might say it's the Seattle Seahawks, but they have a historically bad defense that I think is going to hamstring them down the stretch. It definitely contributed to their loss last week. The Buccaneers got blown out on Sunday Night Football. They were kind of becoming my favorite before that game. And the Saints, who blew them out, I'm still not entirely convinced. I know they've been without Michael Thomas for most of the year, but I'm still not entirely convinced that they have what it takes to win the conference. So I think it's very wide open. And also a little bit of a surprise. I think the AFC is extremely strong, almost 1 through 7. Now, we can't go 1 through 6 anymore, 1 through 7 with the extra playoff spot this year going forward. The Miami Dolphins are a surprising team. I thought the Raiders would be competitive. I didn't think they'd be quite as good as they are right now. I think that Browns game turns out differently if the conditions aren't so bad. But they are a serious team to consider, going forward. So I think the Browns are in for an interesting battle in the second half of the season in a conference that's much, much stronger than I anticipated.
Nick Shook, what do you think the Browns need to do? What's the number that you say, okay, I feel good if the Browns hit this number in the second half?
I think it's probably 10 wins. If they can duplicate what they've done in the first half, they can probably get in because of that extra playoff spot. I think in a regular year prior to this year, it would need to be 11. They'd probably need to be 11-5. I don't think they're going to win the AFC North. I don't think they're going to beat Baltimore or Pittsburgh again. So if you count that as your last 2 losses and then you win the rest of the games down the stretch, which looking at the schedule, I mean, there's really only one game I see on this schedule that I think, oh, man, they might lose that, and that's Tennessee in Week 13. Otherwise, I think they should beat Houston. They should beat Philly. They should definitely beat Jacksonville. They'll probably lose to the Ravens. They should definitely beat both the New York teams. Then maybe it comes down to Week 17 with the Steelers having a chance to potentially knock them out. If they can score a win in one of those 3 games with Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Tennessee, they're in a great position. And I also think they just need to get healthy. They need Nick Chubb back, and they really need Wyatt Teller back. We know what his absence has done to the rushing game. And I think it's also the fact that it's coincided with Nick Chubb's absence has hurt them on the ground. And we all know, if you run the ball effectively, Baker Mayfield's a better quarterback, and the questions about, his viability long term and whether he can avoid making mistakes kind of go away as they run the ball effectively, which is true for most teams, but especially for this one because of the way they're built, the way the offense is schemed, and because of the type of quarterback Baker is. So they got to basically duplicate what they've done, and they got to get healthy, and I think they'll have a really good chance.
Folks, if you heard Nick there, I think that's worth kind of just emphasizing. 10-6. That's where the AFC is.
Yeah.
That's how good the AFC is, and that's also how bad the bottom of the NFL is. Because I think there's going to be a lot of teams, Nick, that are 4-12, a lot of 3-13, 4-12, 5-11s. So that means the reverse of that is true of the teams that are getting it done. And I tend to agree with you, Nathan. I talked about that this week. That 10 is, you feel pretty good with 10. And folks, keep in mind that's with an expanded playoff. That's an extra team, and you're still feeling like you got to get to 10 to get there. You mentioned getting healthy. It sounds like we are. Nick Chubb, Wyatt Teller, Austin Hooper. In just the run, obviously we know how special Nick Chubb is, goes without saying. But just from a run blocking perspective, what was Wyatt Teller doing so good the first 4, where he was graded as the number 1 offensive lineman in all of the NFL? Why was this such a perfect marriage for him in this offense?
I think it comes back to the type of scheme that they run and the fact that when you have that zone scheme, you have to kind of all be in sync, and he's just been very much in sync. And he's also been a guy who has made very few mistakes. I mean, he's consistently getting to guys, staying on blocks, finishing blocks, getting to the second level, which anytime your guards are doing that, we know Joel Bitonio is going to do that. He's done that for years. We know J.C. Tretter's going to do that. He's also done that for years. And the tackles are kind of the question mark, and for the most part, they've played very well. Jedrick Willis has been as good as I thought he would be, and Jack Conklin as well. But Wyatt Teller was a big question mark. And instead of being a question mark, he's been the strength of the offensive line when healthy, and we've seen the results in the rushing attack. So, the play that got Nick Chubb hurt was kind of a bummer because, Wyatt was kind of diving to try to get a piece of his guy at the last second and just fell into Nick Chubb. But for the most part, he's been so good. I think he still has the highest Pro Football Focus grade of anybody at any position in the entire league, and this is a guy who basically hasn't played for the last month. So if you get him back, your offensive line returns to being one of the top in the NFL, and when you pair that with the running backs you have in Nick and also in Kareem Hunt, I mean, that's an offense that should get right back up to the top of the league in terms of rushing yards per game. They were my number 1 backfield when they were both healthy early in the year because of the contributions they were making and just how effective they were on a per-play basis, with Kareem obviously doing a lot in the passing game as well. So you get Wyatt back, you strengthen that offensive line, you have no question marks there. And that's not to say that there has been a question mark there. It's just that you haven't been as good without him because of how well he fits in under the tutelage of Bill Callahan, which we cannot overlook. We absolutely cannot overlook how much of an impact he's had on this group, especially on Wyatt Teller. So you get him back, I think your chances are pretty good.
When you look at this team, and you mentioned the running backs, you're getting healthy at the right time, and you get the worst run defense in the NFL. So I don't think anybody would be surprised at all if the Browns go out and run the heck out of the ball against this Houston Texans team. But the time will come. You mentioned those 3 big games where you're going to have to throw it, and you're going to have success throwing the ball. And Odell Beckham Jr. won't be there. Who do you see stepping up for this Browns team in this passing game to help kind of pick up some of the slack that will be the void that's left, especially from a vertical standpoint, by the loss of Odell Beckham Jr.?
So statistically, Jarvis Landry was pretty much on par with Odell in terms of yards, catches, and all that stuff. And even Baker's stats when throwing to Jarvis and throwing to Odell, they were almost identical. So I don't expect a massive uptick from him. And we know he's a warrior. He's gotten out, a rib injury and continues to play. But I think a guy who is very fond in the hearts of Browns fans is Rashard Higgins. This is a guy who we didn't see that much of last year for whatever reason. He's come back into the fold with the absence of Kadir Hodge, kind of leaving an opening for Rashard to get involved, and he's proven that he's worth that playing time. And the other guy is Donovan Peoples-Jones. I was really excited when the Browns made the selection of him late in the draft because I thought, like Urban Meyer said, that he was a talent that could have gone in a much higher round. I don't know if he was a first-round pick like Urban Meyer said, but I thought he was probably a day 2 pick. The fact that they got him on day 3 and the game-winning touchdown catch that he had against Cincinnati, obviously proved that he's capable of doing stuff like that. And I think with more time, more opportunities now with the absence of Odell, which means you got another receiver spot to fill, I think he's going to gain more confidence and kind of establish a rhythm and really provide a third viable option at receiver for Baker. And, we've talked about it before, that the tight ends are obviously 3 deep. I mean, you get Austin Hooper back. He's a stud. We know what David Njoku can do, and Harrison Bryant has been a surprise to some. If you watch his FAU tape, it shouldn't be that surprising. He's made the jump pretty well to the NFL and has been effective as well. So then you're looking at there, you got 6 quality pass catchers before you even get to Kareem Hunt out of the backfield. So I think if you rely on Rashard Higgins, who Baker has an established relationship with, and you continue to get the ball to Donovan Peoples-Jones in spaces that it makes sense and he's open when you take what the defense gives him, then you have a well-rounded receiving core that's still very solid even without Odell Beckham Jr.
Nick, let's talk a little bit about Baker in terms of what you've seen the first half and what needs to be seen in the second half. Certainly, the last two times we've seen him, and the Raiders game was different because it was just a ridiculous circumstance to try to play football in, and there were some big-time drops in that game that he suffered against, but was incredibly sharp against Cincinnati after a disastrous start. What did you see there that clicked for him where it looked like he looked as a rookie, frankly? And there's been a lot of that over the course of the season, but that was when it was really magnified. What do you see with Baker when it's going good?
I think I see somebody who's decisive in the decisions that he makes, and he's quick with his passes and where he's going. I think sometimes that comes back to bite him in situations like when they were playing Pittsburgh and Minka Fitzpatrick came down in the robber coverage and just picked it off. And I think he's probably learned from that. But when he's got it going, it's a guy who is not necessarily the offense, but is a guy who operates very well within the offense. I keep going back to that rollout touchdown pass to Odell in week 2. When he rolled out to his left and fired a beautiful strike to Odell past the defensive coverage as he fell into the end zone for a touchdown. That's a very difficult throw to make, rolling to your left as a right-handed quarterback, and he let it rip like it was nothing. I think when he is at his peak, he makes those types of throws, which again is dependent on the rushing attack and also dependent on the offensive line protecting him well. I think you got to get him in a situation where the reads are a little bit easier, the passes might be a little bit shorter, you get him into a rhythm, and then you let him rip the ball down the field. I thought it was really fun to watch and also exciting for Browns fans when they were faced with the game on the line in Cincinnati, and he goes down the field with complete confidence. I mean, this is a kid who we know has all the confidence in the world, has the moxie that you want out of a franchise quarterback, and has just kind of needed to put it together and cut down on mistakes. And in a situation where you got to go for broke, you make a mistake, whatever, it's the ball game. You're trying to go win the game. He displayed exactly that. He went out there and let it rip. He found guys open down the field at varying levels of the field. He threw, a beautiful pass down the sideline that set up the game-winning touchdown pass to Donovan Peoples-Jones. He got the guys up the line in time to spike the ball. He did everything you need out of a quarterback who's experienced. And even though he's only in his third year, I think that's one of his greatest strengths is being able to perform well when the spotlight is the brightest, when the game is on the line. It's just a matter of kind of getting into that rhythm beforehand, which he did, with that streak of consecutive completions, which he would have finished that game perfect after starting 0 for 5 if he didn't have to spike the ball. I mean, that's incredible to think about. And, I really hate how nationally you get the discount of, it's the Bengals. The Bengals are a competitive football team.
Yeah.
We saw that twice with the Browns playing them twice this season. The first game in week 2 was a close game. The game they played in Cincinnati was a close game. This is a team that's a lot better than its record. So I don't think you should discount that performance. And if Baker can get out there, get comfortable, get into a rhythm, and cut down on the early mistakes and not feel like he's got to force the ball in certain areas, then I think he's going to be an effective quarterback, and we can kind of stop, hearing all the talk about, is he the guy? I think if you give him a full season with Kevin Stefanski and you get him in that rhythm and everything else and everybody's available, you'll find out that he is the guy, and he's definitely the guy you want to turn to with the game on the line.
We certainly saw that, and as you mentioned, Cincinnati, it was a great feeling, and I think for the Browns, you mentioned the path to the playoffs. How important is it to have that feeling and that performance? The Bengals are no slouches, but if the playoffs started today, Tennessee would win its division, the Steelers would win its division, likely be the number 1 seed in the AFC, and the Ravens would be the top wild card. How important is it for Baker and this Browns team in this second half to beat one of those teams and have that kind of defining signature moment against a team that they would be facing in the playoffs?
Well, it's funny because, we talk about how that's going to be a tough road against those two division opponents in Pittsburgh and Baltimore. But if the playoffs shake out in the scenario that you just described right now, they're not facing either of those teams on Wild Card Weekend. I think their ceiling right now, as constituted in the way they've shown, is they're a Wild Card Weekend team. They might get a surprise win, and that's about the extent of things. Not to kind of throw cold water on the fire or anything, but I think that they build towards something greater in the year ahead. But if they get an advantageous matchup, they get a game against a team like, say, Tennessee, and they can pull that one out, then all of a sudden you've got a surprise victory and you find yourself in the divisional round. The key to that is exactly what you just said. They have to get a regular season win over a team like that to give yourself the confidence and belief that you can go in to an opponent's stadium in the winter, in the playoffs, and go in and do what you did in the regular season. I know it's hard to beat a team twice. It's really hard to beat a team 3 times. But if you can get that win over Tennessee and then you end up playing them in the wild card weekend, you can't tell me that these guys aren't taking the field believing that they can do it again. So I think it's extremely important to get a victory like that. And if you can steal one against the Steelers or Ravens, then you're in a really good spot in terms of record and chances of making the playoffs. The only situation I think I kind of worry about them with is if they have to try and go and outscore a team. not that their offense isn't capable of doing that, but if you play a team like Kansas City, their defense isn't the best. Maybe you can control time of possession on the ground, but that's an uphill climb. A matchup with Tennessee, or maybe a division winner from I don't know, maybe you play Buffalo coming out of the AFC East. That's a tough game as well. Might be a little bit more favorable than playing a team like Kansas City. But again, as long as you get that win over a true contender and prove to yourself, that's really what this franchise needs right now. Is we know that they're talented. We need them to believe and demonstrate that they're a legitimate team, because for so long they haven't been. They've been knocking on the door for a while. They need to go through that doorway in the regular season before they get that chance to maybe prove it in the playoffs.
He's the best, folks. He's
Nick Shook.
Nick Shook.
He's got a nickname.
Thanks, buddy. He does.
And it's his own name. Just said differently. Same, but different.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's 2 syllables. How easy is that, right? Just raise your voice up a little bit.
So great. So easy to do. Feel free to use this air check if people need reference on how to do it properly. Good talking to you, buddy.
I think I'm going to send it to Sessler and Hansis and that whole crew.
I think you should.
There you go.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
that's the right move.
Yeah, thanks,
I got you, Shook.
We'll take care of you.
Appreciate it.
Good talking to you, buddy.
You too.
The best.
All right, he's great. So happy for his success. Reminder: all guests appear on CBD. Do so via the Fifth Third Money Line. Fifth Third Bank, making Cleveland Browns daily a Fifth Third better. It's scores time. A little short edition of the scores. Wow. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Snapple on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Nominations for the 2020 Helmets program now being accepted. Zenith invites you to nominate your Ohio high school to receive $25,000 worth of new Zenith helmets. Visit promotions.clevelandbrowns.com to learn more. And reminder, Browns fans, tonight at 7, the Kevin Stefanski Show presented by Howard Hanna on the University Hospitals Cleveland Browns Radio Network. Join us, Coach Jack Conklin. They're on the program. You have that to look forward to tonight, which is nice. And after that, it's a nice game. It's a fun game on Thursday Night Football. I like this one.
It is a fun one. But before we get into that real quickly, I want to update.
Yeah.
Yesterday was Veterans Day. We shouted out some of our good friends in the service, and one of them reached back out. Actually, both did. I got a great text from former Secretary of the Navy Thomas Modley as well, who found a prime rib place outside of Milwaukee that serves a 112-ounce prime rib. And he said, this seems like something I believe you would be interested in. And by my calculations, that's a 7-pounder.
Okay, so here's how we do that. You do the Kohler, you do the Wisconsin Kohler golf thing, and then how far is that? Can't be that.
I don't know,
right?
but I do know that we are going to Green Bay for the regular season next year, and I'm assuming that there is travel, and I don't know how far. I don't know how far Green Bay is from Milwaukee, but I'm sure it's probably a huge distance.
It's about I want to say 2 hours, 3 hours.
So you're
Green
saying
Bay
it's
to
possible?
Milwaukee.
It's a bit steep.
It would be easier if we were staying in Appleton like we used to when we went to Green Bay.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll see what happens.
Where do you stay now? Do you stay in Green Bay?
They actually built like nice hotels in Green Bay, so now we stay in Green Bay. But for the longest time, we stayed at it was like a Marriott in Appleton, Wisconsin, 30 minutes south.
If Green Bay, Wisconsin was an Ohio town, which Ohio town would it be? Because I've never been. Put it into perspective. If there was an NFL team in which Ohio town?
Akron?
No.
Is it bigger than Akron?
It's got to be.
It might be smaller.
Okay. You said no, like that was an absurd thing.
Well, I mean,
is it more like Dayton? Is it more like Youngstown?
I think it could be Dayton.
Isn't Dayton bigger than Akron?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I feel like I don't know.
I don't know.
We're saying this relatively
small town.
emphatically.
It's not a big town. Nonetheless, we got sidetracked. So that's one thing that we'll explore. But
sorry.
We
my
also
fault.
received a text from our good friend, Mr. Previtz, who is, of course, as we know, overseas in Afghanistan.
Correct.
And one of the things he sent us, Gibbe, is a picture from the broadcasting studio at their base that features an on-air light, believe it or not. And he said, if they can make this happen over here in Afghanistan, I have faith in Gibbe.
1 minute.
That's great.
Previtz, I love you, man. I love you, Previtz. Stay in your lane. Do what you really do best, Previtz. Come on.
The man is a hero.
Previtz,
and you're telling him to stay in his lane, Gibbe.
Jeez,
Previtz is a man that can
like
do
Veterans
anything
Day's
he
over.
wants.
That was yesterday's news.
He can do anything he wants, except talk to me about lights. By the way, the population in Green Bay, 104,000. Dayton's got 140,000.
So it's Youngstown.
How many are in Akron?
Yeah, it's more.
I want to stick with my Akron call.
All right. Titans, huge.
I agree. I don't understand this line. It befuddles me. I agree. Titans win it at home, 23-17. And by the way, Browns fans, that's what you need to be rooting for.
By the
Titans.
way, Akron, Ohio population, 198,000.
Ooh, burn.
I think it's more like Youngstown.
Just like your golfers in the Masters.
What?
Or Canton, maybe.
I don't even know what that
maybe
means.
Canton would be. Maybe Canton's the apples for apples.
By the way, don't sell the Colts short tonight. Thursday Night Football, weird things happen on Thursdays.
We just did.
We just sold them
You're
short.
getting a little chesty here at the end of the show, Gibby.
I called some things earlier in the day.
Go straight to hell, Colts.
I called things earlier in the day. I called missed 3-foot putts.
Next level is
That's
next.
Right.
Cleveland